Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, let's get started here. Weekend number 11 of the college football season. Rob Browne broadcasting live from our studios at Red River Ford Toyota in Wynne, Arkansas. They're open every Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And service department on Saturdays, 7 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. 25 service bays. They deliver anywhere, new cars, trucks, and SUVs. Check them out, redriverfordtoyota.com. Got Gordon Ford, the fireman on Fire Watch, looking with those binoculars. Which coach is next? I tell you what, nobody knows more, has a better feel for the trends, who's next to walk the green mile than Gordon Ford. Frank Duffy checking in from his condo down in the French Quarter in New Orleans. Jimmy Hodge will be joining us in a moment from Lake Zurich, Illinois. Second segment, Kevin Scarbinsky, longtime sports writer, Birmingham News, now the Birmingham Lead, and CoachSafely.org checks in. And in the second hour, Buddy Martin, GatorbaitMedia.com checks in. The Buddy Martin Show, of course, every Monday through Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, joined by the likes of Franz Beard and Ben Troop, who, man, he's got a great collection of hats and fedoras. And Jimmy and I and him had a great talk about it on Thursday when he was on the show. But lots of college football to talk about. We're here with you every Monday through Thursday. 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. Check us out live, www.sidelines.live. If you miss it, go to the 680 The Fan, the podcast park over in Atlanta, and our website, and Kicks 96.3 Alexander City, Lake Martin, Alabama. 750 miles of beautiful coastline. Those of you sitting out there listening today, getting ready for college football, you may be going over to Auburn for the game. You may be over in Oxford pulling for the Tide, could be pulling for the Rebels. And we cover the SEC and your favorite team all over the country, college football, basketball, baseball, and recruiting. That's what we do. That's who we are. So let's get started. Gordon, you're with us here, going to be with us here for the first 30 minutes or so. So we're going to get a lot out of you. Where are you? Where's your gut feeling about this game? Alabama, a 12-point favorite against the Rebels in Oxford, coming in off of a loss to LSU. What's the buy-in from you?
All I can say is if they don't get pressure, that being the Rebels, on Bryce Young, it's going to be a long day.
Gordon, you're getting a lot of static in your call. I don't know what that is, but we can hear you better now. Yeah. And Okay, go ahead.
So anyway, if they don't get pressure on Bryce Young, it'll be a long day for the Rebels. But, the Rebels have a rushing attack that is incredible. And Judkins and, Zach Evans. I mean, the bottom line is if they can run on Alabama, it'll be, they got a shot at winning.
Well, Gordon, let me just say this. We look at the way this season's gone for Alabama. We talk about it every day as we do all these teams. They're 7-2. They could be 5-4. They could be 9-0. 4 games gone down to the last play. Ole Miss goes down to Baton Rouge and gets just curb stomped by LSU, comes back, goes on the road, wins at Texas A&M on the 29th. They've had the bye week. What is it that you look for Ole Miss to try to do against Alabama? Not that you have the game plan or whatever, but both these teams can run it and both can throw it.
I think one thing is they brought Ivy in and Taiwan Malone to strengthen their defensive line. They've been running that 3-man front. I think you'll see somewhat of a 4-man front in that. I think the Rebels will run the ball like they've been doing. And hopefully, Jonathan Mingo can get open for some long balls. But right now, I think their offensive line has been good, except for pass blocking, that being the Rebels. And I think that if they get pressure on Bryce Young, like I said, it could be in a competitive game. Right now, Alabama, I don't know if they lose 2 games in a row. I don't see that, but it's possible. And I think that Ole Miss is going to definitely have to play a very good, perfect game. Plus, it's going to be a lot colder down there than it's been. You live in this area, Rob.
Yeah, it's cold this morning.
Drop 25 degrees in temperature. So I don't know how that affects either team, and you're about to see that today.
Yeah, 2:30 kickoff, CBS, SEC Nation. It gets the focus of the football world. That's the game today, and it's a big one indeed. Frank Duffy, you're down in New Orleans. Jimmy in Lake Zurich. Let's start with you, Frank, on the balcony down in the French Quarter. And by the way, Tanner Smith, Blake Klein, Peter, two members of the Cherry Farm from Lake Charles. Couvillon, not
Couvillon.
fish stew. Not, yeah. And I was kidding with him. I said, Frank called it fish stew, and he should know better. And then someone else called it soup. I mean, calling that soup, but can you imagine what would happen? The soup Nazi on the Seinfeld show got hold of you.
Well, Couvillon is a fish dish. It's something I'm really not a big fan of. I'll be honest with you. I'm more of a jambalaya, etouffee, gumbo guy. So I'm gonna leave that to my boys over in Lake Charles to handle that. That's not in my repertoire. But I tell you, I think Gordon, I think you're right. I think Ole Miss really has to run the ball today. That's their bread and butter. They've got to get back to the ground game that they established before they came into LSU. And look, LSU moved the ball on the ground against Alabama. Now, granted, it was our quarterback that was doing most of the heavy lifting. But you've got to be able to establish that running game against Alabama. And not only, Gordon, get pressure, but you've got to contain Bryce Young. That's the reason why LSU won that ball game, is they had to keep Bryce Young in the pocket. You saw what happened when he got out of the pocket, and that was with two LSU defenders laying hands on him. He scrambled and he hit that touchdown, with the minute or so left, and it was the easiest pass he had all day. You've got to keep Bryce Young in, or Alabama is going to hurt you. But I'm really interested to see what Nick Saban does bringing that Alabama team in. He's been catching hell all week. A lot of the Alabama fan base was upset with him that he went for two. I'm starting to hear, the crazy words of, well, maybe the Nick Saban by. No way, no how. Y'all don't want him, send him back. We'll take him back. So I'm interested to see Nick Saban and that team come in, because if they're not ready to play, Ole Miss is a good ball club, and they still have. I mean, they're wanting us to stumble. Ole Miss has a better shot at making it to Atlanta than Alabama does. So it's going to be a fascinating game. I'm just happy one of them has to be eliminated in this process today. I'm glad they're playing today.
Yeah, and Gordon, what's interesting is that 11 a.m. kickoff up in Fayetteville, where you're going to have LSU traveling to Arkansas. If Arkansas beats LSU, you don't know what that's going to do to Ole Miss and Alabama, because no one's talking about it. But, Ole Miss wins out, and they could be going to Atlanta for the first time ever. Yeah. How much pressure, Gordon, does Ole Miss feel, you think, right now, other than, well, I like what Nick Saban said on SEC Nation with Paul Feinbaum last night. They call it goat fuel. Everybody talks about rat poison. It's called goat fuel. Why do you want to fuel the GOAT, the greatest of all time, Nick Saban?
One thing is, Arkansas's quarterback, KJ Jefferson, I don't know if he's playing today or not. The way they've been
talking, not sure. Yeah.
He's unsure. And the way a lot of people are talking is that, he may not play. I think that there's no way that LSU loses Arkansas today. I think LSU goes over there and pounds them. I don't think Arkansas is very good. They just lost to Liberty. Sorry about that. My dog's about barking in the background, closing the door. But anyway, long story short, if Liberty beat them like that, manhandle them, what's LSU going to do to them? And I think LSU just beats them unmerciful.
Well, interesting angle. Jimmy Hodge, you've got your theory on that game, but all these games right now, everybody talks about this is a big weekend. They're all big, but yeah, I'm hearing KJ Jefferson could play, but if he plays, he's not 100%. And what have they been saying all year long? The coaches try to tell him, don't run the ball so much. You're putting yourself out there. Jimmy, your take on this this game, because I want your thoughts first on Alabama Ole Miss, and then we'll talk a little about that Arkansas LSU game.
Well, I think Alabama Ole Miss is a situation strictly depending on how the Alabama players, respond to the fact now that their championship hopes are very likely over. And are they going to come down to Oxford and, try to, again, restore the pride in the program, in that they have a number of players I do know, seniors and juniors that are going to be picked in the NFL draft, that are going to want to make sure that their legacy is not remembered by the fact that they were the team that ended the 14-year streak of winning 10 games in a season. That's really a big deal to a lot of players on this roster. And we're going to see if they come to Oxford ready to play from the opening kickoff, because we all know 2 years ago that Lane Kiffin just completely overmatched Pete Golding, and Alabama could not stop that Ole Miss offense. The game ended up being, I think, 62-48, but Alabama did not have an answer the whole ball game. And playing in Oxford, I think it's going to add another dynamic to this game, because the crowds are really going to be in it. And the question is Alabama going to be more aggressive on the defensive side of the ball like they were against Mississippi State, or are they going to be passive and lay back and not blitz and not send extra defenders in the pass rush like they did against Tennessee and LSU? So we'll find out when they kick it off.
Yeah. And, Gordon, talking about that matchup, Lane Kiffin, Nick Saban, and Frank made a reference a moment ago. Nick Saban, the game hadn't passed him by. All he does is he just adapts. And right now they're in a transition. There's some things about football that have changed. They're always favoring the offenses. And Pete Golding, in his fourth year at Alabama, I think the co-defensive coordinator is Charles Kelly. It's driving them crazy. They were talking about when they played Tennessee. I'm talking about Alabama. They couldn't figure out how they were lined up. Is Lane Kiffin, without a doubt, is there any doubt he's one of the top 5 offensive minds, innovators in college football?
There's a lot of people have said that he's the greatest play caller ever. I mean, I think Al Davis, and he didn't even like him. And he had said that Lane Kiffin was one of the greatest play callers he's ever seen. Now, Pete Golding, on the other hand, I got the feeling that that he may end up not being there for long. I could see him getting another job, either in the NFL or head job or something like that. Because, I mean, like you said, he's been there 4 years. And even though he's had good defenses this year, he's just having trouble stopping people.
Yeah. Frank Duffy, it's like the McLaughlin report. Frank, you're on the clock. McLaughlin report. But Frank, going back to what he said about Lane Kiffin.
They're tentative back there. I mean, Eli Ricks got beat up last week, and Jimmy and we spoke before the game. I thought he was going to have a great game coming back to Baton Rouge, wanting to show something to his old team, and he was very tentative back there. And Rob, to your point about them being out of position a lot on defense, they were out of position on the 2-point play. They had to get a defender off on that 2-point play. And we talked about it. I think that's how much Brian Kelly liked that 2-point conversion call. We didn't snap the ball. We wanted the space so we could get, Mason Taylor out into the flat. So that's why we didn't take the penalty. We could have taken a 5-yard penalty on Alabama. So, yeah, you're right. They're out of place. Lane Kiffin is one of the greatest offensive minds I think college football has ever seen. And I think Al Davis, had he kept him in play.
Well, if he would have ever kept him, I think they could have been really successful. Frank, we're having issues with you. You're fading in and out. Your signal or whatever is breaking up. So just keep going.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I think Al Davis, made the mistake of getting rid of him at too young of an age. And I don't know what happened with Tennessee. I think there was just some personality issues with that. But, he has really found a home in Ole Miss. And I'm going to be it's going to be very interesting. I really think before this thing's over with, he's going to be tempted to leave. And it's going to be interesting to see if he decides to stay in Oxford, because he is building a great program there. And we'll see what happens when, a bigger program with more resources comes knocking. But if Lane Kiffin stays in Oxford for an extended period of time, he will have a program that will get Ole Miss finally to Atlanta and possibly a national championship. That's my call.
Yeah, it will be a fun one. Frank, you're having keep that where you are because your signal or whatever was coming in and out. But Gordon, looking at that now, obviously everybody knows Lane Kiffin's name is being linked to a number of jobs out there. But Ole Miss, Ole Miss, you need Gordon. It's a tough call, and I just think that looking at the play callers, Lane Kiffin, Mike Leach, I mean, those are two. Now, Mike Leach, that offense is way different than what they do at Ole Miss. I mean, completely different. And I would say what makes Kiffin so elite is his ability to, if he needs to go heavy on the run, hey, he goes to Quinshon Judkins, he goes to Zach Evans. Now, Jonathan Mingo is his top guy as a receiver. They're not as deep as they've been in the receiving core, nor is Alabama. I mean, you take away Jonathan Mechie, you take away Jamison Williams and Ja'Cory Brooks, and you've got Colby Prentice this year. Colby Prentice is the second leading receiver on that Alabama team with 29 catches. The leading receiver is running back, the transfer from Georgia Tech, Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr has caught 39 passes out of the backfield. And Jimmy, it's hard if you are trying to scheme against Ole Miss when you've got Lane Kiffin, who is, to me, he's ahead of the rest of the curve. And I think that's what the problem is. And Alabama today, people question how are they going to play if they're out of the national championship hunt. Well, we had this discussion the other day. They're not. They're not out of the discussion. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be right back with more Sidelines.
Hey everyone, my name is David Wisdom.
And I'm Shelby McNeil, and we're attorneys with Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short, your local Auburn law firm. Established in 1959, right in the heart of Auburn, Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short has grown in response to our clients' legal needs. We're a full-service law firm focusing on the legal issues our clients face.
We take pride in providing our clients with exceptional legal services, ongoing communication, and skilled representation. If you have any questions about our services, please give us a call or visit our website today.
Okay.
Now more than ever, it is so important to shop local and to buy American. For 60 years, Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company has been on the historic Collierville Square, and we strive to sell made in the USA products when available. With over 7,000 pairs of Western boots and work boots in stock for men and women, come and see our huge selection of clothing, jeans, and accessories from top brands made in the USA. Please support local business and come shop with us at Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company. God bless the USA.
Hey, man, we
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Okay, Rob Browne back here with you on this Saturday morning edition of Sidelines here. We like to talk about college football. And Jimmy, I want to go back in here and talk with you about what is going on with this Ole Miss Alabama game. You got a lot today. We've talked about it a lot, but let's talk about the Arkansas LSU game for just a couple of minutes. Kevin Scarbinsky is going to join us. Gordon's got to get going, head down to Oxford. But, 3-point line, we always say it, Jimmy Ott's famous quote, there are a lot of tall buildings, and Mark Schlabach says it as well. There are a lot of tall buildings in Las Vegas for these very reasons. In, 2 minutes or less, your thoughts on this Arkansas LSU game that kicks off at 11 a.m. Central, same time as Tennessee, Missouri, but let's focus on Fayetteville.
Well, if KJ Jefferson is able to play, and not only able to play, but able to play at close to 100%, the Hogs have a chance. But if he's not, and we've heard speculation all week that he might not even play at all, then, I just don't see the Hogs having much of a chance. And LSU's on a pretty good roll right now as far as confidence and momentum goes. And it was going to be a difficult task anyway. But if Jefferson can't be close to his normal self, LSU's going to beat these guys, I think, convincingly.
All right, that's interesting. Frank Duffy, you look at LSU. This is what drives me crazy about a lot of the talking heads in the media. Well, they'll be due for a letdown after the big win. After I make a sale or after I catch a fish or after I shoot a duck when I'm duck hunting, I'll load my gun as fast as I can to shoot some more, catch some more fish. That is just complete nonsense, the letdown theory. Who came up with that crap?
Nobody's ever left the craps table after hitting 3 hard 8s in a row.
There you go.
Never happened. And look, from what I'm understanding, we've prepared for KJ Jefferson, but it is our expectation, from what I'm hearing from the football administration, that he's not playing. That's the scuttlebutt. But look, even if he does, LSU's defense right now is playing at a very high level. To play Jackson Dart and to play Bryce Young as well as they did in 2 consecutive weeks, whether he plays or not, I don't think it really makes a difference. I think it comes down to, does Brian Kelly have the attention of his team? Are they going to be up to play for this 11 o'clock start in cold weather on the road against a very tough opponent? I'm telling you, look, go back to Nick Saban's 3rd year coaching here in 2002, when all we had to do was beat Arkansas at home to go and play Georgia, when Georgia had that great team in Atlanta. It was the year right after we beat Tennessee in Atlanta, and we thought we were all good, ready to go, and lost to Arkansas. So no, the Pigs have our attention. They always do, and LSU is going to be ready to play. And if everything goes a Hoyle, I think we play well, we beat them. But yes, I would not touch this game. If I was betting it, I would not touch it. If you put a gun in my head, I'd take the Tigers, give up the 3. But this is the type of game where, again, the tall buildings in Las Vegas, they don't spring up like mushrooms after a spring rain down here in the South. They're built on people's losings. And just like you saw with Tennessee, Georgia, that sucker bet last week, the Hogs are going to give it all they've got, and I think it's going to be a down-to-the-wire close game before it's over.
Yeah, and KJ Jefferson, he's got to learn. I mean, again, I'm not his coach, but he's bigger than most everybody, as a quarterback at least. So he thinks he can run the ball. And if he's running the ball, he's putting himself out there to get hurt. He's going to obviously run it 5 or 6 times every game, a lot of design running plays. But that is a problem with guys that are that big. They forget how important they are to the team. I mean, I think Jimmy, Frank, everybody listening would agree. Quarterback is more important than I can ever remember. You can't go out there with a custodian, a game manager, and win a national championship anymore. Those days are over.
I saw that Monday night in the Superdome with the Saints not having a quarterback. It was a pathetic attempt. KJ Jefferson, like a lot of big quarterbacks, somehow they think they're Cam Newton, and they're not. And they absorb these hits, and they just get rocked. Where the difference is, look at Jaden Daniels. He knows he's slight. He gets down. Hell, he got down so well. He made an Alabama defender who was really going to knock his block off, slid underneath him. They even picked up the penalty. He was so elusive. That's what. So if you're going to run, it's okay to run in college. It is. But you got to get down and you can't take those hits. And that's why KJ Jefferson missed the whole game this year.
Yeah.
Arkansas was playing really well at that time and missed the whole game.
Yeah, I honestly, when they went on the road to Starkville against Mississippi State, he was not able to play. And Malik Hornsby threw for over 260 yards. But golly, all right, let's do a little bit of rapid fire roundtable. Make these quick because we got about 6 minutes before Kevin Scarbinsky joins us. Jimmy, real quick Cliff Note version. Missouri, Tennessee, 12 o'clock Eastern kickoff today in Neyland. Does Tennessee come out like with something to prove after last week? Because, again, it all depends on who you play. Georgia is definitely number one in the country, but Tennessee's still in contention for the playoff.
All Tennessee has to do is win out. The only thing that's going to keep them out of the playoff is if LSU wins out, or if LSU lost 2 games and then Alabama snuck in, won today, and then beat Georgia in the SEC championship. So if Tennessee wins, man, they're in great shape. They've got everything that you can imagine to that you're playing for, because they can smell that chance of being in the playoff, and they're going to be totally motivated.
Yeah, and you look around at games. Who would have thought with the way things are playing out that I picked Tennessee to win 10 in the preseason, but there are a lot of scenarios right now. So what happens in Fayetteville if Arkansas springs an upset? What's that do to the mindset of Alabama and Ole Miss? But Frank, nobody's making a case for Alabama much to win, and get back into the playoffs, but you can get there with 2 losses. Again, you go back to 2017, Auburn with a 10-2 record loses the rematch against Georgia in Atlanta, but they were number 2 in the college football playoff rankings.
Oh, no. Let me tell you something. Alabama and Ole Miss are not out of this, and all of us LSU people, we know we've got to take care of business. There's no givens. Let me tell you something. 4 weeks ago, after the Tennessee game, both of these LSU would have been underdogs in. We're not taking anything for granted. Alabama can still make it to Atlanta, and so can Ole Miss. Now, Tennessee, I think they rolled today. I think Tennessee is a great ball club. And look, let me tell you something. Tennessee gets into the playoffs, they're going to be a tough out. I love Tennessee's team this year. I really do. They know they're still playing for the playoffs. They can get in. I don't think there's any hiccup in Tennessee. Tennessee just ran into a better team, a team that had gotten tired of hearing about Tennessee. So no, Tennessee's going to win today. They're going to roll. I think Tennessee wins out. Tennessee is going to take advantage of this opportunity. Whether they get in or not, depending on what my Tigers do, is another story. But Tennessee will win out, and they'll be there for that invitation.
Well, you look at the playoff rankings the way they are. Game we talked about yesterday, Ken Capps was on with us live from Cisco's Tex-Mex restaurant down in Austin, and TCU and Texas in Austin today. That's a primetime game tonight. Guys, that is big. TCU moved up to number 4. Yes, it's true. Ken's wife started it, but it's a big phrase. Fear the frags, as they say in the Midwest. The frags. I'm like, a frag or a frog? And in the South, we call it a frog. It's just a frog. But
this is just nasty to begin with.
Yeah. But horned toads, as Ken mentioned, spit venom out of their eyes when they get angry. But that is a big game. Jimmy, give me a pick on Texas at home against this undefeated 9-0, 4th ranked in the CFP rankings, TCU Horned Frog team.
I think I'm going to go with Texas. You could very well see a similar atmosphere to what Alabama faced in the second week of the season. And I believe that is a night game. And the fans are really going to be revved up. They're going to have had all day to get fueled up, so to speak. And I think they could very well be a factor in the game. And TCU's had a number of games in which they've had to come from behind and to win. As a matter of fact, they are number 1 in the FBS in come from behind wins this year. They are 4-0, I think, after trailing at halftime. So, Texas is going to have to be focused for the entire game, but I think they certainly can put a lot of points up on the board. And it's just a question if they can contain Max Duggan and his explosive offense enough to where the Horns can score enough points. I think in the mid to high 30s, that would be enough to win the ball game. And then you got to remember, even if TCU does win tonight, they have to go next Saturday to Baylor, who is going to provide just as difficult a test. So they do not have an easy road to an undefeated season, which is the only way they're going to get into the playoff.
Yeah, Frank, we talked yesterday, again, Ken Capps out in Dallas, Football Writers Association of America. Bo Carter was a long time with the Big 12 office, Football Foundation, Baseball Writers of America, SID at Mississippi State, 12 years. I mean, those two guys combined have over 80 years of experience, covering these games. One statement I'm going to make: the Big 12 is back in terms of relevance in the college football world. There are a lot of good teams, and I'm telling you what, this is just my take. Texas is rising. They get that win today, nobody's going to be shaking in their boots more than the folks over in College Station, because they're stuck with Jimbo unless somebody wants to puke up $85 million.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think it's going to be a great game, TCU and Texas. I think it's one of the ones I really want to make sure I get to a TV. I'm going to the Tulane UCF game. Hopefully this rain will stop. I think it's supposed to. It's gotten chilly here in New Orleans, but I plan on going to the game and watch my Tigers on the tube. That's the one good thing about being in the timeout game, Rob. You get to get it over with. Hopefully, so we'll know where we're standing by 2:30 Central Time today, and I get down there. But no, I do want to get to a TV for TCU Texas. I think you're right, Jimmy. I think it's a murderer's row that TCU is going to have to go through. With Texas and Baylor. I think there's a stumbling error. Like my friend Tim Brando, who used to, by the way, be a sportscaster in Baton Rouge before he got the big time, goes, I think there's a fly in the ointment is going to be removed today or today, certainly next week. I think TCU will fall by the wayside. And look out for Texas, man. I'm telling you, every time you think Texas is going to finally get their stuff together and Bevo's motoring over poor Uga in the Superdome. We go in there in 2019 and beat them back into, to reality. I think Texas, I think they've got to make a run here in the Big 12 before they come to the SEC, because I think it's be good for their confidence. But I think TCU stumbles this week or next.
Yeah, I do too. Kevin Scarbinsky joins us again, longtime sports writer for the Birmingham News, native of Pottsville, PA, and Troy graduate, and now with the Birmingham Lead and CoachSafely.org. And I got to say this, I saw something on Twitter that really got my attention. Boyd's daughter went to Montana State University out in Bozeman, the Bobcats. They've got one of the coolest entrances when they run onto the field. You've got 5 or 6 cavalrymen on horseback with flags and all as they come out on that field. College football all over the country, it's a big, big deal, and it's getting to be a big deal again in Texas, and could be really big if the Hogs, for the first time since 1999, knock off a top 5 opponent at Darrell K. Royal Memorial Stadium. Kevin, a lot on the menu today. We hadn't even gotten into Auburn, Texas A&M. That game tonight, a jam-packed Jordan-Hare Stadium. We've got Florida. We've got Georgia at Mississippi State, but let's go and get your thoughts, and you wrote some great pieces this week in the Birmingham Lead. Folks, if you're starved for great reading, great writing, you need to join and subscribe to the Birmingham Lead. Kevin, love having you on here.
Thank you, guys. Good morning, everyone. A little different weather today, a little gloomy at the moment. I think it's going to brighten up, be a little cooler though as the day goes on. Definitely feels like football weather today as we're getting into the heart of the season now. It's put up or shut up time now.
Yeah.
And for teams like, LSU again made a huge statement last week, obviously. Can they keep that momentum? Can they deal with success? That's always something you wonder when a program has struggled a bit and then they're coming back. How do they handle success? And Ole Miss, Ole Miss has been sitting there. Lane Kiffin I don't know why lines from Gone with the Wind keep coming back to me, but they're sitting there just like a spider, just waiting for Alabama, just waiting for Nick Saban. This appears to be Lane Kiffin's moment. I don't know if he'll make any popcorn references before the game starts. He would probably be wise not to.
Yes.
But this is a perfect spot for them and for Lane to get his first win over Nick Saban and to continue to roll on and to demonstrate, this is what's amazing, guys. If Ole Miss wins out and LSU wins out, Ole Miss will be 11-1 and not go to the SEC championship game. I don't know. There are a lot of arguments why Auburn is a better job than Ole Miss. I don't know a better one than that, because 3 of the last 4 Auburn teams to beat Alabama went to the SEC championship game, and 2 of those teams played for the national championship.
If that happens, Kevin, this year's Magnolia Trophy might be moved to the front of the trophy case, not the back.
That's right. That's right. And guys, and then talking about Auburn and talking to folks on the ground there last night who were at the basketball game, I don't know that I've ever heard of more enthusiasm for a 3-6 football team.
Yeah,
it's amazing. The feeling for the love being shown because of Carnell Williams being in that interim head spot. The one thing I hope they're wise enough, that I think John Cohen and the new president, Chris Roberts, are wise enough not to be caught up in that emotion and make a decision on the permanent head coach that wouldn't be best for the long run.
Yeah. I mean, and we're about to go to a break. We're going to talk about it. Cadillac Williams is he's having fun. And I said this yesterday, first time in several years, last 2 at least, that the Auburn football coach looked like he actually loved being the Auburn football coach and loved the fans. And that's a mutual respect and appreciation and love between the fans and Cadillac. But again, whoever the coach is, I believe it would be great. Hopefully he'll keep Cadillac on the staff. A lot of things that I've learned is if you're not having fun, you can work these guys hard, but if you're not having fun and they don't believe that you really care as much as they care, it goes both ways, it's tough to win. And what's happening at Auburn is crazy. We're going to talk more after this quick break with Sidelines.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Rob Browne back with you on this Saturday morning edition of our college football round table. It is Military Appreciation Day. I know down on the plains as Auburn and Texas A&M will kick off tonight at 6:30. It is cold. I'm telling you, here in Wynne and Memphis, it's about 35 degrees. I know MJ, Tanner Smith, Jack Greer, and Blake Kleinpeter all out there. We've been brushing blinds yesterday on Veterans Day, and today. Next season's great, but somebody's got to do the work. And glad to have you back with us, Jimmy. And Kevin, we're looking at this right now, and you just said Ole Miss could go 11-1 and still not get to Atlanta if LSU wins out because they hold a tiebreaker. Everybody's talking about it, so let's ask this question: Lane Kiffin, he's being mentioned with a lot of jobs. Do you see him taking the Weber State job? No, I'm kidding. No, it is. How much? How likely would it be that he's saying all the right things right now, but Dan Lanning, Hugh Freeze, Lane Kiffin, what are you hearing, and what even are we likely to hear until the season's over? And then you've got to have somebody on the ground because of the December signing period at Auburn.
I haven't heard anything to throw me off what I originally understood from folks that I talked to at Auburn, that Lane Kiffin was the top target, that he is the perfect choice right now for Auburn, what they need. You know, they need talent first and foremost. They need someone who can not only go out and recruit high school players like, I don't know, Quinshawn Judkins, who's from 40 miles away from Auburn and would have loved to have signed with Auburn. You know, he can do that, but he also can go into the portal and get some help in a hurry. And that's really what Auburn needs, especially at the quarterback position going into next season. So he checks that box. He knows the SEC. He doesn't need directions to the Atlanta airport. He doesn't need directions to high schools across the Deep South. He checks that box. He is not afraid of Nick Saban. He hasn't beaten him yet. He gave him a scare 2 years ago in that incredible shootout in Oxford. But he understands how Nick Saban works. He's been behind enemy lines, if you will. He's been in the program. And he's just, and he has it's interesting because he seems like, you know, there's such a contrast between his actual personality. You know, he's really kind of withdrawn. He's a little bit shy. He doesn't really like the spotlight in that sense. I think of him as a guy, again, different personalities, but more like Will Muschamp, who just loves ball. He wants to talk ball. He wants to coach ball. He wants to draw up plays in the dirt. You know, that's really what he's about.
Yeah.
But he has adapted. You know, he's so good on Twitter. He's so good on social media, which, again, is where a lot of these recruits live. So he just checks about every box you can think of. And he's an offensive mastermind. He's as good as it gets in calling plays and adjusting his offense to his talent. Not every coach is willing to do that. Some coaches are married to a system. Lane Kiffin is married to his talent. And if it's Amari Cooper, he's going to catch over 100 balls. If it's Derrick Henry, he's going to carry 35, 40 times a game down the stretch and win the Heisman, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what he checks there's no reason not for him to be the guy. Now, again, we don't know what's in his head. We don't know what's in his heart. We do know the state of Mississippi has a law. You can't have anything longer than a 4-year contract.
Yeah.
That's a factor. Auburn can, if anyone's wondering, Auburn can pay him. They want to pay him $8, $9, $10 million a year over 8, 9, 10 years. They can if they want, which may be what it takes. I don't know. But again, there's no better candidate for Auburn right now.
Auburn has to make him say no.
Yeah.
Bingo, Frank.
You know, and like what Frank's saying, then here's another one. You know, everybody, a lot of Ole Miss people are saying Auburn needs to hire Hugh Freeze. That's, to me, I interpret that as, we don't want you getting Lane Kiffin, but you can have Hugh Freeze, almost as, you know, take him. Will the people at Auburn, I mean, you know about this history. When John Cohen and before him Scott Strickland was the AD at Mississippi State, there was a little bit of a feud. I think people have forgotten about it. But living in Memphis, I heard about it on the trading floor every single day, you know, before work. Of course, none of that stuff is ever talked about during trading hours, of course. Man, what do you think would happen there if Hugh Freeze and John Cohen got in the same room, considering their past history? I'm just your take on it.
I think that's certainly something to consider. You know, John Cohen was in Starkville when all of that was going on. So he knows the backstory as well as anyone.
Yeah.
And then, look, Hugh Freeze is a good football coach, but I got into this in my column on Thursday in the lead. I compared Hugh Freeze's 5 years at Ole Miss with Gus Malzahn's first 5 years at Auburn.
Good
and 4 of those years overlapped. You, of course, started a year earlier as the head coach at Ole Miss before Gus got the Auburn job the next year.
Yeah.
Gus Malzahn has a better overall record in that period. He had a better SEC record. Does anyone realize Hugh Freeze had a losing record in the SEC? He was 19-21 over 5 years. He was 14-16 in the SEC West.
Yeah.
People have focused so much on his 2 wins over Alabama that they have not realized overall in those 5 years, Ole Miss was 5th in the SEC West in overall record.
Yeah.
So
and overlooked how he did it.
Yeah.
I mean, all the issues.
And didn't get to Atlanta with his best team.
Yeah.
Lost that crazy game to Arkansas. that could have that in what was it 2015 that could have put him there, or 2014. I forget now. But anyway, he had a chance to get there. And again, I'm not saying he's not a good football coach. I'm saying, and this is a little snarky, he looks to me like a Dollar General Gus Malzahn.
Wow.
wait a second. I'm going to do like Rich Little used to do when he would do Rich Little would do imitations. He would go on the spot. That would again. Right, Kevin. Here's something.
Wow.
My good friend Stuart Carter, Stat Tiger, works with Mark Murphy and folks down there inside the Auburn Tigers. Stat Tiger put out some stats, which is what he's great at, and he's an incredible investigator. He compared Lane Kiffin's time at Ole Miss with the time and the stats on Hugh Freeze. Lane Kiffin wins every single category. You just nailed it. I mean, and another thing, Kevin, I mean, I think Hugh Freeze can flat out coach. No doubt about it. I don't know. And people say he would be like Bruce Pearl at Auburn, be so bought in and jacked up and excited. Well, all that being said, there are a lot of Auburn people that are like what you just said. He's just Gus without the sweater vest and the nose picking. I mean, let's be honest.
And like I said, his record, and it's to me, it's a very fair comparison because they were in the league for the 5 years at the same time.
Yeah.
So they're playing the same teams with the same talent, especially in the division the teams you've got to beat. Well, now that's going to change, of course, with expansion, but that's to me, a very valid comparison. And it just points up the advantages Auburn has over Ole Miss as a program. Oh, and by the way, Gus Malzahn was 3-1 against Hugh Freeze head-to-head during those years. So, by any measure, I don't think Hugh Freeze is as attractive a candidate as Lane Kiffin. And let's not forget this. In the entire history of Ole Miss, if Ole Miss wins 2 more games, if this team wins 2 more games, Lane Kiffin becomes, the only – I forgot. Now I lost my stat. I got so excited about this. But Lane Kiffin has a chance to do something that hasn't been done since Johnny Vaught. And Johnny Vaught's name's on the stadium.
Yeah.
So, to me, there's no comparison.
Well, that's what gets people. And then another piece that I read recently, and I cannot remember exactly who wrote it, but it said Hugh Freeze's wins and success that he's had have come with a cost. And Auburn, the coach at Auburn, and then the criticism people say is, Lane Kiffin, he's not going to be into going to Toomer's Corner and lighting a Christmas tree on the town square and all that stuff. I don't think people really care too much about. I mean, Auburn people want their coach to love Auburn. And I think, what I hear about Lane Kiffin is his kids are moving in from all over, his son and daughter to live with him in Oxford and all like that. And then you hear about Hugh Freeze. They've built him a house. Well, Auburn could build him a house too. So all that being said, people, Kevin, and you're a writer. How does a narrative like Hugh Freeze is the greatest thing since the clapper, remember that one to turn the lights off? How does a narrative like that get started?
Well, first of all, I remembered my stat. If Ole Miss gets to 10 wins, he'll be the first coach the only coach in Ole Miss history to win 10 games 2 times, at least, at Ole Miss. Vaught did it a number of times, and this is the first time they will have done it in back-to-back years since, I think, 58, 59, or 59, 60. So Lane Kiffin's doing pretty amazing things in Oxford. That other stuff, that off-the-field stuff, I think is way overblown.
Exactly.
There's no shortage of citizen lately.
There's no shortage.
Campus citizen.
Frank, there's no shortage of people in Auburn, Alabama, willing to roll Toomer's Corner.
No kidding.
They don't need Lane Kiffin down there doing that.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Hugh Freeze, I think, is a much bigger risk off the field than Lane Kiffin, my opinion.
Yeah.
Sorry, look, I don't care who you hire. Everybody has some baggage. Everybody has something, a negative on his pros and cons list. Everybody does. Except maybe Nick Saban at this point in his career. And Nick Saban didn't go to Auburn. The elephant in the room, though, and I want to hear Jimmy's thought. I'd love to hear Jimmy's thoughts on this. Yeah. The elephant in the room, obviously. Does Lane Kiffin think that he has a chance to be the next Alabama coach when Nick Saban retires? And would he hold out with that possibility without any guarantees? And I don't know that there's anybody at Alabama that would give him that guarantee right now. I doubt that there is. there could be some back channel discussions, not with
Because
him
Auburn
directly,
would
of course.
ruin that. Going to
What
Auburn
do you think?
would ruin that.
Yeah, and if he goes to Auburn, he's not
Never.
down the road going to Alabama. I think
Never.
we're all in agreement with that.
Yeah.
Jimmy, what do you think about that?
Jimmy, you there? Okay. Well, Jimmy, he's muted himself. But I'll just say this. Kevin, I was one time standing right about 10 feet away from a great Southern author, Shelby Foote, and talking about people, what you can say about people, whether they're still living or whether they've been dead for 100 years. He said, as Shelby Foote, the great author, said in that Greenville, Mississippi Delta accent, the poet John Keats once said you can carve up any man and bring him back from the grave and find something bad to say about him. We've all got things that we're not so proud of, but it's, one way of looking at it. But you're right. Everybody has issues. And if you want, as a friend of mine said, Stuart Carter, if you want Mr. Rogers, okay, you want that, go hire Gus again.
I was going to say, y'all had that with y'all.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's a wonderful day at Jordan Hair. I mean, you want to go through that again? Hey,
there's something else. There's something else to consider here. Who did Auburn just elevate? Although I don't know how you elevate above senior associate athletic director without making him athletic director, but they just promoted Rich McGlynn. They're the guy in charge of compliance. And there are people at Auburn that will tell you Rich McGlynn's a hard ass. There are coaches that will tell you he's a hard ass. Yeah. So, the part of Hugh Freeze's baggage would not match with Rich McGlynn's philosophy on hiring a head coach.
Well, hey, Kevin, I heard when Penny Hardaway got the job at Memphis, someone told me that they had a compliance officer sitting in the desk right next to him because Penny didn't know all the rules. And you saw what happened, and they were able to get away with paying a parking ticket fine for what they thought were going to be big penalties, whatever. But, hey, the compliance guy is always going to say this. If you want to go recruit, there's going to be some paperwork involved. And that's the tough part about it. I don't know Rich McGlynn. But that's his job.
I got to tell you, this is apropos of maybe nothing, but it'll give you a laugh. So Nick Saban gets the job at Alabama. He's been there like a week. He's meeting with Kevin Steele. They're talking about recruiting, of course. That's what Nick Saban is all about. And the compliance director, he's young, he's enthusiastic. He comes in there. Nick Saban has a speech in Birmingham that night. He comes in and says there may be recruits there. Here, you have to be careful about what you say. And Nick Saban looks at him like he has two heads and says, and I can't use the adjectives that Nick Saban included in this conversation, says, who the bleep do you think you're talking to? Get your ass out of my office, go back to your office, and don't come back till I ask for you to come back. And the compliance director nobody ever talked to him like that. So he goes with his tail between his legs and he stops in Mal Moore's office. And he describes what just happened to Mal. He said, Mal, what should I do? And Mal Moore, God bless him, said, if I were you, I'd get my ass back to my office and I wouldn't go back to his office until he called for me.
I love it. Kevin, that's what I love having you on here for, because you got those stories and you're out there finding it. But that's right. I mean, you know what? A lot of times they call them the sales prevention department. Oh. And in recruiting, I've heard horror stories about it but again, with Brian Harsin, it always helps if you make some effort and go out and meet coaches and go on the road. And as people will say, when he got to Alabama, he should have been at Thompson High School in Alabaster. He should have been in Hoover. He should have been going out there to these schools that are producing these players. Phoenix City Central, they've got 25, 30 Division I players on that roster from 9 through 12, Kevin. When you have 33 kids, 22 4-stars, 7 5-stars in the state, those 29, Auburn has three of them committed at this point. Something's got to give. Someone has to make it.
And you mentioned it earlier, Rob, the reaction of the Auburn people to Brian Harsin, aside from Cadillac being the interim coach, to Brian Harsin being gone, it's like munchkins marching through the streets singing "Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead." I mean, the celebration, it's unbelievable. And they
the lollipop Gill has been unleashed.
I mean, have you ever seen Auburn more excited about a loss to Mississippi State?
I mean,
they're excited.
They're scalping tickets, man. I mean, you're scalping tickets for the battle of the basement, 2, 3, and 6 teams. And you're right. It's like, hey, man, we've been in timeout for 2 years with the Grinch. I don't think the guy ever smiled. It's like, if you don't want to be here, let us know. But you're going to get 15. If I were Auburn, I would counter and say you were fired with cause. The
next guy's going to be coming in and tap dancing. I tell you.
Oh yes. My God. Jimmy, join us when you can. I know you had some. We're experiencing technical difficulties at this time. Until then, we'll show video of Mildred on the beach.
Yeah,
Jimmy, you there?
Jimmy's still muted.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Kevin, Frank, jump back in here to this one because you made a good point about the Hugh Freeze. And then, Kevin, you laid out such a great case for Lane Kiffin. I mean, he's saying all the right things right now, but if you are, and you're right, make him say no how many times? Because I'm in sales. No means tell me more.
Yeah. By the way, statistically, most American business is done after the 12th sales call. Honestly, that's a statistic. So, but my thing is with Hugh Freeze is just if you get into bed, Frank, what the history is.
I'm out. Hold that call. We're going to take a quick break and come back with more. Frank Duffy, Jimmy Mute Hodge, and Kevin Scarbinsky with Rob Browne on Sidelines after this.
Hey everyone, my name is David Wisdom.
And I'm Shelby McNeil, and we're attorneys with Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short, your local Auburn law firm. Established in 1959 right in the heart of Auburn, Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short has grown in response to our clients' legal needs. We're a full-service law firm focusing on the legal issues our clients face.
We take pride in providing our clients with exceptional legal services, ongoing communication, and skilled representation. If you have any questions about our services, please give us a call or visit our website today.
Yeah. Okay, we are back. Rob Browne, Frank Duffy, Kevin Scarbinsky. And Frank, you were making some great points before we went to the break about the Hugh Freeze situation.
Well, look, here's the thing. There's an issue potentially with Hugh Freeze because of what went on with Ole Miss. It's not debatable that, obviously they had their sanctions. He left in disgrace. So if Auburn gets into bed with this guy, what's the old saying? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yes.
Auburn is going to have to deal with this. And Auburn has no more mulligans on coaching hires. They're mulligan free. They are sitting on that first tee box, knees shaking, and they've got to get this thing right. I think Lane Kiffin is a much safer play. I think Dan Lanning would be a much safer play, even though he's only in his first real coaching out in Oregon. So I will tell you, Auburn, be very careful with Hugh Freeze, only because you've seen what's happened at Ole Miss. I mean, look at that recruiting class. I mean, it was. For us to storm the field in 2014, beating Ole Miss, that's not Ole Miss that normally is Ole Miss. All that was the tip of the iceberg, probably, that went on with that Ole Miss class. And I'm making aspersions, but whatever happened, the smoke is above the chimney, and if Auburn goes and takes Hugh Freeze, you're on record. You've been warned.
Yeah, Kevin, I want to know too. Someone sent me, a friend of mine that knows these figures. Auburn, in terms of buyouts for Gus Malzahn, his staff, buying Brian Harsin and his staff, and their buyouts and all that stuff included, and all over $73,275,000 in go away money. I'm curious, two things. Is that being paid for? I have my theories, by private boosters on their own, but that's still money that Auburn won't get directly. And number two, is that money that Auburn's raising in athletic fundraising, through their fundraising arms, put into a slush fund, and then it's being used to pay these guys to go away? Because if it was, I'd be madder than a wet hen. As Foghorn Leghorn so famously would say, back off, boys, you're bothering me.
All I know is plywood's going up.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been trying to build a fence for a while. I gotta take out another mortgage to be able to afford all the wood.
And it's still less than what they're going to have to pay Jimbo. Crazy.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Look, I don't know all the details on where they're getting the money, but I do know I am assured by Auburn folks that I know that money is no object, that will not be a hindrance. They don't have to go to the dollar store to find the next coach because they're paying the last two coaches so much not to be there. That's the heart of it, really.
There's a printing press somewhere in Toomer's Corner cranking out cash. That's all I know.
Yeah, Kevin, that's $36.75 million to be exact that Auburn has spent to relieve the last two head coaches of their duties. So it comes to the question, just how deep is the Auburn piggy bank? Because Ole Miss has let it be known that they're willing to go 10 to 12 million per to keep Kiffin. And in reference to what you asked me earlier, and I'm sorry for the technical glitch, but he owns the state. He owns the university. I mean, he just basically can write his own ticket. And at Auburn, you're never going to be able to do that. And it's a season-to-season deal even then when things are going well, because you just had that certain power structure that's been in existence so long, and it just, I think, makes Auburn a lot tougher job than people think it is.
I just think, Jimmy, though, I do sense a change. I do sense with John Cohen as the new AD and Chris Roberts as the new president, that there is a change. You still have boosters that think they have far more or should have far more input into decision making than they really should.
And especially at Auburn.
That hasn't changed, and that probably won't change until we get to another generation. But you've got a pretty strong president in there, and you've got a pretty strong AD in there, stronger than they've had in some time on both counts. So there is optimism among longtime Auburn people who understand, how the sausage gets made down there. They've been involved in it. They really, the confidence, and I've never seen confidence in it's been a long time since I've seen confidence in a university president at Auburn the way I hear about Chris Roberts. I liken it to the confidence Alabama people had in Robert Witt, who was largely responsible for the growth of that university, for, basically saying, look, we're going to go with Nick Saban. We're going to give him what he needs. We're going to give him what he wants, and we're going to get out of his way.
Yeah, Kevin, to follow up on that real quick, I just wanted to ask you, after a couple of weeks of everybody taking a step back and observing what has taken place, the supporters of, the other candidates for AD were very, very, enthusiastic about their support for those guys. And the fact that Cohen ended up getting the job didn't go well with the supporters of those other candidates. Are you now sensing that things have settled down and people starting to realize, hey, this could end up being a pretty good hire? Just how do you see that part of the equation at this point in time?
Yeah, you're right. And there were prominent boosters, some of whom might be able to sell you a piece of plywood with a yellow tag on the end that wanted other candidates for AD. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt. But I really sense, not that everybody's marching, not that they're all marching in line and singing Kumbaya yet, but I feel like they're moving in that direction. At least, again, that's the sense I'm getting from the well-placed folks that I talk to on a regular basis.
Like my good buddy Doug Dean says, Jabba.
Yeah.
Jabba.
Well, hey, and Frank, that really, and I know, Rob, you were going to go there too. That really jumped out at John Cohen's introductory press conference on Tuesday. Him turning Auburn being Auburn on its head from a negative to a positive. And the way he did it, and I understand he wrote that himself. He wasn't someone there that said, hey, this would be a good idea. Yeah. He wrote that himself. and saying, 3 Heisman winners. That is Auburn being Auburn. National championships, SEC championships. That is Auburn being Auburn. He did that 6 times, 6 different attributes of the university, and punctuated it by saying that is Auburn being Auburn. And I know Auburn people loved hearing that, because some of those people who fit and who use the JABA acronym are Auburn people.
Yeah.
They say that amongst themselves.
I've never used that before. It's all my Auburn buddies, Rob and
right.
Doug that have used, and Billy Roberts that have used that. No, and by the way, the greatest thing is he didn't try to do it in a Southern accent either.
Well, he's from Tuscaloosa.
No, I know. I'm talking about that Massachusetts Southern accent.
Oh yeah, family. Yeah. Hey, Kevin, this is interesting. This is something that really. One more thing, Auburn could claim 10 national championships: 1910, 13, 14, 32, 57, 58, 83, 93, 04, 2010. When they came up short in 2013, I think Jay Jacobs made a mistake by putting it out for public opinion. Should Auburn claim them? Because, Alabama fans and Georgia fans cram the message boards. No. In my opinion, if you're Auburn, ask Alabama. As long as you're going to claim 1941, 9-2, finished 20th in the final AP rankings, and there were 32 other services that gave it to Minnesota. Yeah. And, in 1983, when Alabama kicked off, the year after Coach Bryant retired and then died, they had a great summer because they went from 6 to 11 national championships. They put the greatest branding and marketing campaign in college football. Look, they have a great tradition. So whereas they don't claim, they give up 41, but take 77 when they were outright robbed. Take 66 when they were outright robbed. Keith Thunderman wrote the book, The Missing Ring. But your take on all that stuff, Kevin, because I remember Michigan. I mean, they claim 11, but the last one they won until they shared it in 97 with Nebraska was 1948. We didn't even have color TV then, okay? So Auburn needs to take pride and at least claim 6 or 7 of them. Ole Miss claims 3. When A&M joined the conference, they had a great July and August. They went from 1 to 3. So why is Auburn afraid? As one person in the athletic department told me October of 2013, well, we don't want to look like Alabama claiming all these things. Hey, Alabama's got the greatest tradition in all of college football. Don't argue with it. But Auburn is the 12th winningest program in college football. It's like they're afraid of that burden of success.
Hang on, Kevin. Like where there's been enough sherry devoured at Thanksgiving dinner. After 3.5 years of being on here with Rob and Jimmy, the gloves have finally come off on the Alabama national championship count. I feel like I'm now part of the family. I'm no longer a guest. I'm here with family. The gloves have come off. The parents are fighting.
It's Thanksgiving dinner. No. But here's the thing. I've got. Hey, Mallory's an Alabama grad. I got 3 Auburn kids. But I'm just saying that Alabama could claim. I did the research. They could claim 26.
Hey, I think Betty Crocker gave them one in 1955. The Good Housekeeping sealed national championship.
But that's the whole thing.
You're preaching to the choir.
Yeah, and they've got the greatest tradition. Notre Dame, move over. You don't. Okay, you don't play in the toughest conference in America. So yeah, I'm giving Alabama credit. I'm just saying, why is Auburn always so afraid by just claiming 2? Ole Miss claims 3, 59, 60.
I want my 6 back since 2007. Those are mine.
Yeah. I'm gonna get.
Hey, Rob, you can blame me in part for that going public with Auburn, because I sat down with Jay Jacobs in Pasadena the day before the national championship game against Florida State, and that's when I brought that up. And I don't know why. I don't know if he was in a good mood or what. He just decided to start talking about it. And I remember writing that story sitting, because I got to the press box the day of the game, hours and hours before the game. And what a great experience. They gave us a police escort on the media buses from Newport Beach all the way to Pasadena, which is a long ride. And so we're on the LA freeways. We're getting a police escort. A great memory. But Jay opened up about it, and I wrote the story, and it published it or put it online before kickoff of that game. And I don't know why they decided not to. Again, it's an Auburn thing, almost to be a little too humble. almost to be, well, we didn't really, that's not official because it wasn't AP or it wasn't UPI back in the day. The NCAA has a list of national championships by someone who was, I guess, what they considered an official body at the time. I think Alabama has 17 on that list that they could claim based on what the NCAA lists on their website. So look, at the end of the day, so many of these championships were mythical back in the day because you didn't have a playoff. You didn't have the best teams meeting in the bowl games. You had arranged bowl games. You had championships awarded before bowl games and then after bowl games. Why not? Why not, elevate your program, pump up your program? When you're putting those numbers on the wall of your $90 million new football facility that Auburn just opened, who does it hurt if you put in 1983?
I can see the lead now. Pennsylvania agitator Scarbinsky creates controversy.
Well, Frank, that wouldn't be the first time I've been accused of that in the time I've spent in this state. I'll tell you that.
Hey, Kevin, I trust me on this one. I have a ton of Alabama friends, and we talk about this, and they're like going, "Why don't y'all?" And this was someone in the athletic department in October of 2013, a friend of mine who's not working there anymore. But I just said, why not claim them? Everybody else does it. And you're right. And this wasn't an attack on you at all. I mean, look, I know your track record. You've got credibility. You are, that's why you're on this show. But you know what? You got to claim them. I mean, Tennessee's got 6 or 7 but they don't claim them all. And they really say 1951, 1990. Georgia claims only 2. Georgia and Auburn, you see what I'm saying? They're very similar. Georgia could claim a lot more, but everybody.
Well, hey. Yeah. Give credit to Jimmy will remember the Alabama Sports Information Director at the time, Wayne Atchison.
Yeah,
one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. He and Ray Perkins came up with that. They're the ones that had basically added those other national championships that had been awarded. They didn't pull them out of thin air. Somebody had awarded those national championships. Let's be fair about that. And 41, of course, is the most that's the one that's laughable. It's when they finished Jimmy third in the SEC that year.
Third.
Yes, you're exactly right.
And the mortal words of Go Pal, shame.
And if a university committee announced on Monday morning that they were removing that 1941 national championship, nobody would say a word. Yeah. I mean, there's absolutely no
Alabama fans would be happy because y'all don't need it, and it's just causing grief. It passes a ball on the other ones.
Jimmy take 77 and take 66. I mean, Alabama was outright robbed in those years. And look, I'm being fair, man. I'm an Auburn grad, but like I say, I got a ton of Alabama friends. I love them to death. And you know what? Who was it? I tell you something. Gary Harris, Tide 100.9, said he remembers Mike Dubose making a comment one time at a press conference about Auburn, about wanting to beat them so bad. And he goes, yeah, because I respect them so much. That's the thing about these schools. Kevin, having been around Coach Dye as much as you were, you didn't talk bad about Georgia around him or Alabama, did you? No, he had tremendous respect for those programs. And it's interesting, as we've kind of segued into the Iron Bowl territory, this is a very interesting time and an incredibly important time for Auburn's hire because, and again, we don't know if Nick Saban is going to coach 5 more years, 8 more years, 1 more year. I don't know that Nick Saban knows that until the end of each season now at this stage of his career. But you'll remember, obviously, there was a great piece on AL.com this week about 1982 as Alabama had, again, they lost to Tennessee for the first time in forever. They lost to LSU for the first time in forever. And then Bryant himself was bringing up the question of how much longer he would coach. And he was, of course, he was putting the blame on himself, saying, I'm not getting it done. I need to do a better job. And Don Koustler, one of the great beat writers, who started beat writing in the state along with Charles Hollis. Hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break.
Okay, you got it.
Ronnie Martin and one of Dr. Chris Roberts' good friends wants to talk to you real quick. We'll be right back.
from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, we got a wild one. Hollywood Squares right now. Rob Browne, Frank Duffy, Jimmy Hodge, Maury Gaston checking in for Birmingham, Buddy Martin, Gainesville, GatorBetMedia.com, Kevin Scarbinsky in Birmingham. And, Buddy, before we go to Buddy Martin, Kevin, this is Maury Gaston, a great friend of mine for 40-plus years, Auburn man there in Birmingham with American Cast Iron Pipe Company and Spiral Weld and Duct. Maury has known Dr. Chris Roberts at Auburn for 20-plus years, and I know you wanted to say something to Kevin, kind of to add fire to what Kevin said, because this Hollywood Squares, man, let's go.
And we just need one more row, and we'll have it, won't we, there?
That's right.
Kevin, I appreciate your comments about Dr. Roberts, and I don't mean this to come off in any presumptuous way, but I've been on the engineering council at Auburn for more than 20 years, and I was chair of the engineering council when Dr. Roberts was named Dean of Engineering. So he and I worked very closely prior to his being named Dean, and of course, when he transitioned from Chemical Engineering Department Head to Dean of Engineering. And I continue to be on the executive committee. We meet several times throughout the year. I've seen how he makes decisions, how he makes difficult decisions, how he collaborates with other people, receives their input. But at the end of the day, he knows it's his decision. And he's going to take responsibility for it and move forward with no excuses. Now, to be totally candid and transparent, I was a big John Hartwell fan. And I talked to Chris about that. And he received the information and took it into consideration. He never replied with what his thoughts were. He just obviously received the information. And then, of course, he went a different direction. And I've told so many people, while I was disappointed in the decision, my confidence in the decision maker remains the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maury, I think that is a great statement on behalf of Dr. Roberts and the confidence that I hear from longtime Auburn people like yourself about him. You may not agree with what he ultimately decides, but you believe and trust that he certainly, there's no doubt that he has Auburn's best interest in mind, but that it will turn out best for Auburn, whatever he does decide. And that's another key point. He is the decision maker.
Well,
there's no doubt with him in charge.
Yeah, you just described a CEO.
Yeah, that's right. And I was on campus the weekend of the Arkansas game when all of this went down, and I was talking in person with somebody who I won't identify, but he said, Maury, I've been around 5 or 6 AD and head coach selections, and I've had trustees nipping at my heels, telling me what they want to happen, and they obviously knew everything that was going on. And then he said, and I can promise you, I hadn't heard from anybody, and nobody knows what's happening except one guy.
Yeah.
He did. I will say this, as someone who tries to find out what's happening before other people. Dr. Roberts did a really good job of keeping a tight lid on that athletic director search, and I don't imagine the head coaching search will be any different.
Yeah, he didn't. Hey, Buddy, by the way, Buddy Martin's on here. Maury, this is Buddy. You're getting to now see Buddy in the flesh, both of y'all on here together, but I know we've had a lot of fun doing this. But Kevin, and you're right, trying to get that information. And Maury, I've known Maury for 40 years. He's from Sylacauga, the marble capital of the world. But, Buddy, jump into this football conversation about what's going on and the importance of getting it right with hiring a coach, hiring an athletic director, and what it's like at a place like Florida when compared to other schools in the SEC, like Auburn, where there's not a whole lot of booster involvement.
Buddy, you're on mute.
Buddy, while you unmute your mic, I'm going to compliment the University of Florida for selecting Ben Sass as president. I think that was an outstanding move.
Yeah, I think I'm on back now, and I say I'm not qualified to be in this high-powered group. I'm a mere servant of the public, as Kevin is, and I'm one of those guys trying to find out what Maury knows. Whatever. So, but no, just to answer your question, this has been an interesting time, and now everybody is basically on referendum about how the coaches they hire. Frank, your guys got it right. I'm telling you, I got to apologize. BK is the guy.
I'm feeling good.
And he is phenomenal. And before I get ahead of myself, I just want to say that, Maury, it's nice to meet you. And I have some dear friends from Auburn. I'll just say this, they're good people. Okay, leave it at that. And I'd like to see that Florida-Auburn game restored again. But that was a great rivalry and something that we need to go back to. And by the way, just for the record, LSU right now is the team I think is playing the best football in the SEC. Yep. That's my opinion. But Auburn, listen, they're trying to get it right again at Florida. Can I count the 1984 New York Times championship? Is that one I got?
Works for me.
Absolutely.
They went on probation the next year, but they had a national championship.
Kevin, what do you think? Can you count it?
Yeah, it's up to Kevin.
Didn't the New York Times pick Auburn in their computer? Auburn in 83, Florida 84. Was that right?
I think it's
absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So,
yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, and just to round out that thought, I think Florida now has got it right. At least it feels that way, and what little I've been able to discern. I think Billy Napier is the star of the future, and he'll be forever linked with those other coaches that were hired. And there's some great news for Florida right now, and it just happened on recruits and flippers and what have you. I won't get into that on this point in time, but I really want Auburn to get it right. They deserve it to get it right. They're good people. It's a great school. It's a lovely place, as they call it, the loveliest village of the plains. I've been going there for 100 years. It may be as hard a place to win as anywhere in the SEC. People don't know that. Florida had a hard time ever winning there. And the program is too good. And they'll get the right coach, and it'll be great to see Auburn back, as it is to see Tennessee back, by the way.
Yeah.
It's good for the league to have that LSU. That's good stuff right now. So, I think you're right. And Maury, I'm good to know the insight that the program is in the right hands. They got the money at Auburn. They got the money. So let's wish them the best, and let's hope that that Scott's got it right in Gainesville, and maybe Billy Napier's got this team. Because right now, if I just may say, if they win today, they should against South Carolina and have a chance to close out and go 8-3. Now this is blue sky talk. 8-3 and get to a bowl and win 9 games. That's as good as some of Spurrier's teams did. So just a little thought there. So
that was a nice win going to College Station. That was a very nice win.
Hey, let me jump in here. And Buddy, you'll appreciate this. And Rob, you'll especially appreciate this. And Maury, I think you will too. One of my Auburn friends told me he was talking to one of his Florida friends. And these are guys that, when I say friends, they're high-level folks at both schools. And my Auburn guy told me that his Florida guy told him, when they hired Billy Napier, we just hired our Pat Dye.
Wow.
That's high praise.
Wouldn't be too bad right there.
Hey, buddy, I know you
Yeah.
said you were going to talk about it later, but how big is the signing or the commitment of that five-star quarterback from California who announced he was flipping from Miami on Thursday night? Does that put an exclamation point on the positive direction that Billy Napier's taken this program?
You know, Jimmy, you such a good point. Whose stat is that, Bill? Yeah, you're right. They had a bunch of them. I would say I'm not into getting in the minds of 17-year-olds. This isn't something I do because I know how that goes, but I know it's also the lifeblood of college football. And the referendum will be is out on Florida and Billy Napier's recruiter. If you all didn't hear about it, it's huge. It's the first time I ever remember Gatorbade's cover being on a recruit. Flipping a flipper. This guy was Shada, who I don't know a lot about, except he's a California quarterback, and they love him. They had him committed. And, boy, if you're not down here, you can't believe what's going on between Miami and Florida. I mean, Florida's got, Miami's got this guy, John Ruiz, a huge booster, who's going out and buying literally buying players, mouthing off. I mean, just obnoxious beyond belief.
Open checkbook.
But he's also attacking Florida at every point in time.
Boom.
Yeah. And so what happens is all of a sudden Florida struck back and they got this prized quarterback from California who originally committed to Florida and then went to Miami. Jaden Bashada flipped on Thursday night back to Florida. And it was huge news. And the word is one of the most respected people in recruiting. You guys don't know him, Bob Redmond. He kind of invented recruiting writing years ago. And he said, he wrote a piece for us, said, I didn't think it was possible, but Rashada's flipping now. There are going to be several other Miami recruits that flip. And Florida's going to have a top 5 class.
I was going to say, Florida might be top 5.
Yeah.
You're exactly right.
So that's how big it is.
Yeah.
Hey, it's not a bad thing to get a quarterback from California.
Isn't that the truth?
How about Bryce Young? How about Jaden Daniels?
Yeah.
Those guys had any success in
Matt
the SEC?
Corral?
Matt Corral, bingo. The list goes on.
Yeah. But you mentioned Jaden Daniels. I mean, that guy is awesome. I mean, he is one of them, and feet or arm. This guy is playing at the highest level right now, which I think is why LSU is going to go to the SEC championship game and give Georgia fits. I know everybody says it won't happen. I just love how they're playing football at the skill position, on defense, or quarterback position, and Browne and that guy going for 2. That was that'll put your team over the top. That to me was a critical moment, and I think it will make LSU's season.
And the big thing was Brian Kelly went to Jaden Daniels before that Florida game and said, you've got to start taking more risks. You're a talented player. Have confidence in what you're doing. Have confidence in your teammates. And that's where it started.
Yeah.
That's really a big moment. So, and I think the good news for Florida fans is they're finally getting their quarterback they hope they had. He played tremendous.
Well, he was there in Texas A&M last week.
Second half, and the defense finally woke up. So they had a big win. But as my friend says, who writes for Gatorbait, he's a iconoclast. He says, don't mean nothing that you beat a sick A&M team unless you go beat South Carolina and finish.
Yeah,
I don't really subscribe to that because I think they had a really wonderful second half. They made stops, whatever. But I get what he says, and people don't believe him yet. They're not there yet. They're not But this was a really exclamation point for this football team. And if they keep getting the play out of the quarterback position they've been getting, and I hope he comes back next year, by the way, but he probably won't.
Maury,
I think.
Yeah. Maury, what Buddy just said a minute ago. Look what's going on down in Florida. I think Auburn's kind of like a slingshot right now, going back, but they do have leadership. When was the last time you saw, and Kevin brought it up earlier, the Auburn family is united for a 3-6 team to play another 3-6 team at Jordan Hare Stadium tonight. It's been a while.
Yeah, that is remarkable that 2 3-6 teams have got one of the most interesting games of the day.
It really is.
It's absolutely hilarious. But gosh, when was the Auburn family last as united? I don't know, but I'll say this: when Tim Businger retired as provost, I was in a breakfast meeting with him, and this was a good 10 years ago. Rob, as you know, Bill Hardgrave succeeded him as provost.
Yeah.
And Dr. Businger said he'd been at Auburn for 42 years at the time, and he had never seen Auburn as it wasn't united. What was
fractured?
Unified.
Harmony. He'd never
unified.
He'd never seen as much harmony at Auburn as at that time. And we're talking about Alumni Association, Foundation Board, trustees, faculty senate, alumni, all that sort of stuff. There was a tremendous time of harmony. And he was right about that. And there's been a lot of criticism of Dr. Geaux for not making strong decisions. Well, we kind of overreacted when we selected somebody who would make decisions with Dr. Leith, and that bit us in the butt, so to speak. And we've corrected that. I think we have threaded the needle, if you will. And John Morris, who's leading the advancement arena, which is alumni and communications and the other group, it's a fundraising development. John's going to do a great job for us. So I am just so high on where Auburn is and where Auburn's headed.
Yeah,
Maury, this might be the most important hire Auburn has ever made in a football program. This one coming up.
Well, and none of us have the personal knowledge of 1950 when Coach Jordan had been passed up in 1946, and Earl Browne was a total failure, and Coach Jordan had to be persuaded because it was a requirement of state law. You talk about this Mississippi contract thing. There was a requirement in Alabama state law that someone actually had to apply for the job. So Coach Jordan typed out a 1-sentence letter. I hereby apply to be head football coach at Auburn University. Of course, he probably said at Alabama Polytechnic Institute. And that allowed them to hire Coach Jordan. They wanted to hire him, but he had to write that letter.
Yeah.
And thank goodness he did.
Yeah. Well, Maury, and it's interesting, Kevin and Buddy, my dad actually was there at Auburn in 1950, member of Kappa Alpha fraternity and architecture school. And he said, boy, you don't know how bad things were in 1950. We lost to Wofford. And I said, Wofford? He goes, yeah, Wofford. And years later, I'm the only guy in 6th grade at PDS that had a Wofford Terriers hoodie. He was doing some work here at the school, but he said the celebration, he said the new governor of Alabama, Gordon Person, came in. The first thing he did before he addressed the state of Alabama was fire Earl Browne. As my dad said, he was a fine man, a gentleman, just couldn't coach a lick. And Coach Jordan got the job. And, you know, Kevin, he and Jeff Beard went to the Auburn Bank on a handshake, borrowed $100,000 to keep things going. And it worked out pretty well. But let's take a quick break. I want to come back and tap into the brains of two really smart journalists, Kevin Scarbinsky, Buddy Martin, GatorbaitMedia.com, because I'm going to tell you, folks, you need to subscribe to GatorbaitMedia.com and the Birmingham Lead. You do this, it's like lifting weights with your brain. It's like exercising, because you will learn so much about what goes on behind the scenes. What I like about these guys is they're not going to comment on something just to be speculative, just to try to be first. They're going to say something when it's right. And they're not always right, but if they are, they'll take ownership of their mistakes. That's what we love about this great roundtable on Sidelines. Veterans Day weekend, Military Appreciation Day down on the plains. Big one up in Fayetteville today, LSU and Arkansas, right after this.
Fireman done, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, we got one more segment to go on the Saturday morning college football roundtable, and want to bounce it around here. Everybody, get some reaction on these games coming up, and start with Buddy, and then go over to Kevin. Your thoughts on this day in the SEC college football, the takeaways from where we've gone the first 10 weeks, and how you think we're going to close out. First with you, Buddy. I know the Gators have a big one against South Carolina today because it's the next game.
Exactly. Well, I think we're take a big look at LSU, Arkansas. There's something going on there with that line. I don't know what. It ought to be bigger than it is.
Yeah.
And somebody knows something, but I think is it 3-point, Jimmy? I don't even know.
Yeah.
So I like LSU. Arkansas is a dangerous team. Arkansas is not at the level that LSU is right now. Nice season, but not really a contender. Alabama's going to have to scratch and fight now. I guess Ole Miss is the underdog in that game, but we know what Lane Kiffin knows about the Tide. And, I mean, to see Nick Saban with the fourth loss, with a third loss would be unbelievable at this point in time, that he's really just barely inside the top 10. We'll see what happens there, but Bama's running out of time. And Tennessee, watch out for Missouri. They're like a snake. They'll bite you. We've seen that before. So that's what I think. Obviously, in A&M and Auburn, in my opinion, they're dead meat. Jimbo is dead. Jimbo would like you to keep his job. The people out there have no patience and a lot of money. Let's be honest. He's been a colossal bust. Especially with someone who ran his mouth, as someone who had the greatest recruiting class. I know they don't kick in yet, but still, you can't play like that. And Florida just hammered him in the second half. So, Jimbo, good luck on unemployment. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Kevin, you think he'll make it on that $85 million?
You think?
He'll be
I
just
think
fine,
he'll survive.
buddy.
But hey, Frank, LSU dodged the bullet when they didn't get Jimbo Fisher. I'll tell you that.
Let me tell you. And by the way, we flirted with him more times than a 1959's romantic comedy. Thank you, Lord.
Yeah, but LSU, Kevin, LSU unwittingly can be credited for Jimbo ending up at TCU. I bet he wishes he was at TCU, but at A&M, because the A&M people were scared to death that LSU was going to snag him. Yeah. And so the LSU people, they can just be laughing at how effective their deception was.
By the way, I'm sure we jacked that up to at least 40 more million on that buyout.
Kevin,
that's right. LSU cost A&M an awful lot of money.
Yeah, they did. Gig 'em, boys, gig 'em.
That's right. Now I'm intrigued. I'm really intrigued by this Alabama Ole Miss game today.
Yeah.
We know that Ole Miss, their running game has just been incredibly good. And can they run the ball effectively against Alabama? I think you can. Tennessee had almost 200 yards rushing against Alabama. Alabama doesn't have the defensive front that they've had in the past. I think that's one difference with that defense. Can Ole Miss slow down Alabama enough? Will Alabama be smart enough to run the ball in the first half and not forget its tailbacks as it did in Baton Rouge? Yeah. That's going to be really interesting. Or do they continue to have – people say they don't have an offensive identity, but their offensive identity is, hey, let's wait for Bryce Young to pull another rabbit out of his hat. He's so good that they rely on him too much at times. And I will go to my grave thinking he is still not 100% after coming back from that shoulder injury. That takes – I've had 2 shoulder surgeries, torn my rotator cuff and labrum in both shoulders, and I was not a college football quarterback, but I'm telling you, That is a tough rehab when you've had a shoulder injury. More credit to Bryce Young for coming back the way he has, but they've got to be more balanced in that game today.
Yeah, but buddy, jump in here. I want your thoughts about that. Nick Saban and Kevin, both of y'all, and I don't hear it coming from y'all, but there are people out there, the dynasty is over. I mean, Alabama, his record is about 181 and 27 at Alabama. I mean, it's crazy, but buddy, your thoughts.
I'm not really ready to put the nail in his coffin. I mean, the guys lost 2 games, a few more. I mean, barely,
And buddy, it won't take a nail; it'll take a stake.
Yeah, a silver steak. One, by the way, at that too.
And a garlic necklace.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. And in my opinion,
a wooden steak and a garlic necklace.
I think he's going to. I think he's had a little bit of an off year. Okay.
Yeah.
If he was 60, nobody would care. But when you get Spurrier went through some of those same thing in South Carolina. When you get a certain age, people say, "Well, he's done. He's toast. Whatever." I mean, Nick Saban is capable of coaching 10 more years if he wants to.
Yeah.
Now, the league has changed, and the dynamics of the SEC have changed. You got a new guy, and you got a guy down there in Knoxford, and you obviously got LSU. So it's not going to be easy, but he can still coach if they're willing to accept, less than. Let me say something about championships. I heard words from Steve Spurrier on Thursday I thought I'd never hear. He said, and they're celebrating this weekend, their 92 team, and Jimmy, you'll remember the 92 team, and they lost 4. And he's celebrating the 97 team. Steve Spurrier said sometimes some of your best teams don't win championships. Wow. I've never heard Spurrier say that. So it's too bad that they don't want to validate anybody anymore, especially Gator fans. They don't want an SEC or a national anything. This is a bad year. Come on, man. It's hard to win in the SEC. And I like embracing some of these teams that really didn't quite get there, sometimes not their own doing. I mean, look, the 2001 team, Jimmy, who had 9/11 came along and they canceled that Tennessee game. And Tennessee came at the end of the year. Steve Spurrier's last game at the Swamp. And they came in here and they went for 2. Joe Gaffney dropped the ball. They didn't get it. And Tennessee scored, and they lost 34-32. That's one of Spurrier's best teams. They went to the Orange Bowl and won by a huge margin. So sometimes, as much as we like to say you have to measure by championships, sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
And that's Nick Saban is a victim of his own success.
No doubt.
In that regard, buddy, because they set the bar so ridiculously high when it comes to championships. I'm gonna make a statement that you could use as a negative against Nick Saban that every other program in America wishes you could say about their program. This year, they're not going to win the national championship this year, which means they will have won one of the last 5 national championships, which will be the worst 5-year spell of his Alabama tenure. 1 in 5. Everybody else in America would love to be able to say that about their program.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
only LSU can win every. I can't believe the last 3 coaches at LSU have won national championships. That's ridiculous.
Hey, buddy, I wanted to add that when you talk about that 2001 season, had Tennessee and Florida played on 9/15 in Gainesville, Florida would have had Ernest Graham. Tennessee would not have had Stallworth, and they would have had John Henderson at about 50%. Instead, they play on the Saturday that would have been normally the date of the SEC championship game. Florida did not have Ernest Graham, and then Henderson was just a monster on the line of scrimmage, and Stallworth had a big game, and it just kind of changed everything. So you just don't know what type of things are going to come up and how fate is going to go in a certain direction. And
not your time.
You're right. And buddy, the only 3 quote unquote off years that Spurrier had compared to his other seasons. I mean, he won 6 SEC championships in 12 years and got robbed out of that first one with that.
He counts probation. That one too, by the one. He
should count that one. But the only 3 off seasons compared to the others were when they didn't have that quarterback situation right. They had the 3-man rotation of Johnson, Brandeis, and Palmer. And then when they got Rex Grossman, then it was back to normal.
So should have won the Heisman, Rex Grossman, too, by the way.
Yeah. But I mean, this is a question for anybody, Buddy, Kevin, whoever wants to answer it. You talk about claiming that 1990 SEC championship team, and Florida should. Why not? Let's go back with a little bit of a case of forensic files. It used to be some teams in the SEC would play 6 conference games. Some would play 7 or 8. You go back to 1972. They're going to celebrate that Auburn, the Amazons of 72 team 50 years ago. Bama punt. Kevin, Buddy, whoever wants to answer it, why doesn't Auburn with a 5-1 record claim the SEC championship? Alabama at 6-1 head-to-head. Auburn won the game. Auburn's only loss that year was 35-7 in Baton Rouge to Burt Jones and LSU. But there's a lot of these old teams that you would play 6. Some played 7. Some played 8. And it's crazy how we used to determine the championship. I guess they did it in the back room at Bushwood Country Club. I mean, it was a kind of laughable, Kevin.
Some people would say they did it at the Bright Star in Bessemer. One of Bear Bryant's favorite restaurants.
Exactly.
Or the Thomas Jefferson Hotel.
It wasn't in Galatoire's right down on Bourbon Street, I can tell you that.
Having some snapper throats over there at Bright Star, the Koikos brothers there in Bessemer, Alabama, which is a great restaurant, isn't it, Kevin?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I had takeout from there at a meeting the other day. Great stuff for sure. Yeah. It's funny, guys. Think about it now. Fans of other conferences complain because their leagues may play 9 conference games. The SEC plays 8. And they think this is chaos. They're not old enough to remember what real chaos is, as you just described, Rob. When you had different numbers of conference games, when you had teams playing games within the conference that weren't conference games or didn't count in the conference standings.
Yeah, they didn't used to count them, and you'd get a lot. I mean, come on, let's go get some snapper throws. But by the way, Kevin, is there any question, and Maury, any question that the Greeks own the restaurant scene in the state of Alabama, from Birmingham to the Gulf Coast, places like the Fish Market in downtown Birmingham, which, by the way, plug for Birmingham. I'm a Memphian. Again, they got that downtown, what they're doing there in terms of development in some of these restaurants, it's incredible. But the Greeks, man, nobody does. Well, the Italians, they're incredible, but nobody has a Greek restaurant scene in the South like Birmingham. It's incredible. Just got to plug that in. Good stuff.
We're talking about where the SEC is now and going from the 6 conference games where you really had no structure. That's why I will always argue that Harvey Schiller is maybe the most important figure ever in the SEC, because he is the guy that came up with the idea to NCAA President Walter Byers of the 2-division conference championship game, because that sparked everything, and it sparked the TV. Now, Kramer, after Harvey left to take over the USOC, he did get the CBS contract signed, but Harvey Schiller's innovation was such a key to where college football is as a whole right now with the playoff system and the SEC's position as the unquestioned dominant conference in college football.
Took the Harvey Schiller from regional to national.
Yes, and Harvey Schiller does not receive anywhere close to the credit that he deserves, and I hope that will change in future years.
Yeah, Jimmy, by the way, if Antonio Langham hadn't made that interception, that game might not have survived. They might have stopped it right there.
Yeah.
Shane Matthews was the one who threw it, and because if Alabama had lost that game, that might have not have lasted more than one time.
Kevin, is there a movement? Is the movement underway? Maybe the Monday Morning Birmingham Quarterback Club, Maury, somebody tell me, anyone, Bueller, is there a movement for a statue of Colonel Harvey Schiller out in front of the SEC headquarters office in Birmingham? I'm serious. I mean, because I agree.
I've not heard of that, and it's doubtful. When right across the street you've got statues of Bear Bryant and Shug Jordan outside the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame. I don't think you're going to add any. I don't think anyone's adding to that crowd right there.
Commissioners don't get statues. That's just don't.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm just saying for what he did, y'all are right. Let me say this: unbelievable Saturday morning college football roundtable. You know, everybody on here: Jimmy Hodge, Frank Duffy, Kevin Scarbinsky, Buddy Martin, Maury Gaston. We had Gordon Ford on there briefly in the beginning on his cricket phone and lost him. But anyway, great stuff. Buddy, tell people, and Kevin, both of y'all, before we go, I want y'all to tell people how they can follow you. I want to say, hey, man, we most often see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out and help people with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Don't give to get, give to give. And Kevin missed the show last week. You know why? He was doing a veterans walk with his sons. That's the kind of guys we love having on this show. But both of y'all close out by telling people, Buddy first, and then Kevin, how they can follow your great work.
I just rather spend that time talking about my day, 30 seconds yesterday, University of Florida Journalism School, where they had 3 generations of sports media people, including my friend George Solomon, used to be the Washington Post, his son, Aaron, who's producer around the horn, and his grandson, Bennett, who's at Florida. 3 generations. I call them the 3 wise men, the Solomons. It was a great day spending it, and what a legacy for the journalism school. Those guys were all great people. It was a wonderful day. My son Brendan and I attended. I'm really proud of the journalism and communications school at the University of Florida.
And you should
Buddy,
be.
I wish I could have been there. I spent 1 year in graduate school at the University of Florida in journalism and communications. Took a class from David Sturt in sports writing and really kind of set me on this path. I didn't finish my graduate degree. I did everything but the thesis because the Birmingham News hired me full-time after I did an internship. And much to my mom, rest in peace, she always wanted me to get that master's degree. I didn't finish it. But that year I spent in Gainesville in that school of journalism was one of the most important years of my life, and I'll never forget it.
David Sturt started Gatorbait. David Sturt started Gatorbait, and which we now own. So yeah, David is a good man. Yeah, it's good to go. Come on back.
Yes,
we'll
sir.
take you back down here.
Hey, buddy, I got a son at Florida. I'm very proud. I got one son and maybe another headed in that direction. We're trying to figure that out.
Tell him to call me.
Will do.
Yeah, listen, and that's the great thing about this is that, Buddy, Kevin, what drives me crazy is when people who've been writing for 30, 40, 50 years, whatever, will say things like, well, nobody pays attention to me anymore. Yeah, they do. In fact, this Saturday morning roundtable, when Kevin's on, when Buddy's on, when we have these great writers, Tony Barnhart, Lauren Smith was on with us yesterday. Lauren, what do you got? Quickly. Well, Buddy is coming over here right now, and the Florida Gators are coming on strong. All right, 81 seconds left. Hunker down. You got to love it because Frank, Jimmy, we talked about it, Maury, who was it? Doug Dickey or Bob at Tennessee said one time, tradition and history, they never graduate. And you talk about these programs that are coming back into relevance. That's what we love about college football. It's what we love about sports because they teach you the lessons of life, man. So, hey, we're here every Monday through Saturday, sidelines.live. Appreciate you listening. Appreciate you being a part of it. And a lot of great things going on here. But we'll be back with you Monday after talking college football. Monday for the great weekend we got ahead. Until then, have a great day. We're out of here.